What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review a compilation album by Smash Mouth. Basically this project is called the East Bay Sessions and it came out in the fall of 1999. Now the information about this particular project is kind of here and there. This is kind of seen almost as like Smash Mouth's first album. This is kind of like a demo album of sorts, just kind of unreleased recordings and pitches like that from around the 97-98 era. Some of the songs from Fushu Mang wound up on Astro Lounge from 1999, like Come On, Come On, but it's just kind of the pitch that a lot of these feel like Fushu Mang leftovers from around that time between 96 and 98 as far as those pitches kind of happen. It's kind of within the tone, just within that atmosphere of getting towards it, but I mean, more or less, this is kind of like the amalgamation. It kind of runs from like their original album as far as those pitches kind of happen. It's kind of a demo album in a lot of senses, but there's just not a super ton of information really about it. There's not a wiki article about this project, and it's really not as commonly known. It may have actually come out before 1999, but it's just within the pitch. I think it was just a good capitalization. I don't know if it really had like the official kind of full-blown Smash Mouth stamp around that time. It seems kind of more off to the wayside, not as commonly talked about, but it was a project that did have some retail release. Just as folks started to notice that Smash Mouth was really catching on. It came out in like one of their crest years, which was 1999, when they were just cresting off of Astro Lounge as far as those pitch can happen. So it's just within the tone. I will say this is a classic Smash Mouth album. This is definitely in the top 3 of their best ones, I'd have to say. Now, at least in my personal favorites of the top 3 Smash Mouth albums, I'd have to say definitely Astro Lounge would have to be in there, and then I'd probably say Summer Girl from 2006 would be 2 nice ones. I remember giving Summer Girl like a 10 out of 10, but this one is going to get a classic score as well. This is definitely up there. All these songs are very vicious, and the tone behind this particular Smash Mouth project is just the fact that you get some songs here. There's just a lot more uppity a project. This is the energetic Smash Mouth that they're known for with their usual kind of summer fire about it. This has some good venue type noise and just conduct about it. This is typical kind of ska surf around type music. This summer breeze just in California weather and like Washington weather, some of those type places where there'd be a coast, some of that type flair. It's really kind of beachside type music and just kind of summer embraces within the pitch behind it, but it does have like a pretty manic type tone, so it's just a little bit more outgoing, sociable, get some drinks in your system, have some good commotion, just overall pitch. It has some makeshift songs on here within the tone behind it, but it's just basically that commerce. This is probably like the most rash album of Smash Mouth, I'd have to say, where I feel like Astro Lounge was just a little bit more melded commercially, but this is a lot more rough around the edges. I don't remember Fushu Mang as much nowadays. It's been over 4 years since I've listened to that particular product. I do at least know the singles like The Fawns and Why Can't We Be Friends and Walking on the Sun, but for the rest of that album I don't really remember it as full blown, but it just seems to kind of be within that conduct. The original Fushu Mang, from what I do remember, was kind of more of just like a ska punk type project that just had a lot more alternative rock more so than kind of commercial pop rock within the pitches behind it, but it's just kind of the tone. This is just kind of a scrappy type album that just is a little bit rougher, where it's just not quite as commercial bound with the pitches behind some of the ones that would just feel like more of like something you're going to hear on like makeshift kind of contemporary type stuff. It's not to say it's not commercial, but it's just within the sense it's just kind of something that kind of has more of that surfer kind of beach bum type altitude about it as far as those pitches kind of happen, just within like a kind of whoa man type aspect as far as those pitches kind of happen just within that tone. It's just a good pitch, kind of get some of that. I look after like the flair. It's just basically like something No Doubt would have done back in 95, 96 with just a little bit more rough aspects about it and a little bit more penchant for like commercial bite within the time. It's kind of like No Doubt 96 with a little bit of like this commercial rock in there with some of like Steve Harwell's catchy hooks and just overall rampant kind of energy. That just kind of happens to be the tone within it. It's just a good aspect to kind of have some of this. It's an underground Smash Mouth release, but it definitely has some commercial flair because it's relatively vanilla, but it is kind of somewhat alternative just within the delivery. But it is a little bit alternative just within the delivery as far as those pitches kind of happen, just getting towards like the concept of the fact that this product doesn't really have a single. This is definitely one of their best, just to say that. So just to say, out of the 14 songs on here, really there's 13 songs because the song Get Some Hoes is just like a 16-second kind of pitch right there. I didn't pay too much attention to that one, but I'm just going to go ahead and say that out of the 13 songs on here, I wound up recommending 12, so the whole pitch behind it. This album's going to get a 10 out of 10, easy enough to kind of have that particular hit. This, once again, is a very inspired Smash Mouth. Some of their spare type songs that they were working on around the Fushu Mang run and like the early days of like probably the more scrappy days of Astro Lounge, some of those high pitches very excellent. Now, out of those 13 songs, there's at least 5 that were also on Fushu Mang, and one of those 5 was also on Astro Lounge, which is one of those 5 was also on Astro Lounge, which is Come On, Come On. So there's 4 songs on Fushu Mang, 1 song on Astro Lounge, just in the pitch. Those 5 songs would be Pet Names, Beer Goggles, Come On, Nervous in the Alley, and Push. I recommend all 5 of those songs just to have that aspect as far as it is. On top of that, it's just some good type flair. Most of these are just the same frenetic type flair, just some good, just venue type energy for like a good step out and like a relative, just Friday evening type sense, and just some summer cruise around as far as those pitch can happen. Just very sublime type vibes and pink skies as far as those pitch can happen. Just standard fare. Now I'm not going to do the descriptions for these just because I did review Fushumane back in the day. Now nowadays, I think I gave Fushumane like a relatively kind of trite score. I didn't enjoy it as much back in those days. Even some of the singles, like the unfortunate thing was just because it was a little bit more like just me having less harnessment back in those days. I pretty much my favorite song on there was, back in those days, was probably Walking on the Sun. I didn't really enjoy Why Can't We Be Friends that much, and I was kind of here and there with the Fawns. But nowadays, I'd probably give like definitely Fushumane like a way higher score to say it's a pretty excellent type album. It's a lot of these songs, these 4 songs at least that were on that particular album I recommend now, so I'd probably say that would definitely up the score. But so there's 7, but out of the remaining 8 songs out of 13 that are on here, I wound up recommending 7. So there's really only 1 song, like I was saying, out of 13 that are the new songs. There's really only 1 song out of the 13 songs on here that I don't recommend, and that's just If You Don't. So the thing about this particular one, If You Don't, is just kind of more of like a hammy kind of this evening dredge type one to kind of get within that context. It's something that Weezer or Green Day would kind of do in just like a more beleaguered kind of smarm type altitude. It's kind of like a more, not necessarily grateful, but just kind of just taken aback type tone just within the pitch behind it. Just a little bit more bewildered within the sense as far as like the pitch behind it. Just more, real emphatic and kind of like a jury type sense, but just didn't nail the tone as far as the pitch kind of went along with it, in my opinion. It's just kind of the flair behind it. But that's the only songs this album gets a 10 out of 10. I'm just going to burn through some of these. Every other song on here hits heavily. These are a lot of good treats and appetizers from Smash Mouth as far as this pitch can happen. These spare songs are really excellent. This is a great album to try. It's definitely a great album to try and track down. I'd have to say just every one of these. So a real vicious type one on here is Burn the Cycle. This has probably some of the best riffage on here. It's very catchy and just like augmented. I'd have to say it's like a very smooth kind of alternative rock glaze kind of get here. Grab a couple drinks, just kind of add a pub pitch just like that. Just some good pub turn up within that flair, and this is like a nice groovy jive kind of get about this one. So it's a nice dance foot tapper to kind of have within that tone. Good type pitch. This is the sort of stuff that Smash Mouth needed to do on like their later albums. It just felt like their energy kind of got burnt out after 2001. Not so much it got burnt out full blown, but they just did not have like the fiery type energy. It felt like it reached like an apex with Astro Lounge, and then like it was kind of a little bit dimmer on Smash Mouth 2001, but they just kind of became a little bit more campy from like 2003 forward. But they did have continued hit projects. It's just kind of the factoid that most of the crowds after about I'm a Believer just stopped giving them as much of a chance, which is unfortunate because they continue to have hit albums. I've reviewed every one of their albums. This is the last Smash Mouth album I have to review now with Steve Harwell around. This is the last Smash Mouth album I have to review now that Steve Harwell did, and it's just within the pitch. Every one of these has been a pretty good highlight. I enjoyed Get the Picture despite the fact that was a campier one and seemingly more kid-centric. Summer Girl from 2006 was a classic, and Magic from 2012 was really good. So it's just the concept that a lot of these Smash Mouth really didn't lose their flair, but they just kind of got stymied out of the spotlight, which is unfortunate. But Burn the Cycle really has some great riffage, real catchy type, dance type to a nice groove on there. Strong is a highlighted one. This is like a spicy kind of argument tune to kind of get with Bay or with your flame as far as this pitch can happen. It's just like the negative version of Come On, Just that bustling kind of get shit done as far as those pitch kind of happen. Just the typical kind of snappy kind of summer pep to kind of have within that aspect. Just some good type flair. It's basically one of those type ones. Just real like the concept of this particular type flair. Just a good type aspect. Just to kind of have like some it's kind of one of those type ones to have some toxicity as far as those pitch kind of happen. Just some summer type flair. Just standard kind of day spice as far as those pitch kind of happen. Another one that's pretty much like that would be kind of like Sorry. I'd have to say this is like a good pairing with Strong, same sort of pitch, just in the altitude. Sorry is the same sort of pitch, just within the altitude. There's like some in-between moments, like right before a night out, I'd have to say it's a little bit disgruntled about it. Kind of another bickering type tone just within the pitch. Spicy kind of goes with Strong, like I was saying, this is more night embrace. So if Strong was kind of the more day type fare, just like day activity, smoke a blunt, something like that, TV's on, standard type fare, watching like that 70s show or some typical type show, something like that, just in standard fare, some of that type nest. This is more night embrace, which is kind of getting ready for date night, some of those type pitches, just the argument type fare, just right before heading towards like standard activity, just maybe it's like some ballroom, something like that, maybe it's like some ballroom, some pitches like that, just some good type jazzy outing as far as this pitch can happen. It's just kind of the bickering beforehand. And then some of these type ones on here, like To Be Continues, a very nice one. This has like a real good, just kind of vintage groove on here. It's like a very 50s and 80s kind of flavored grease to kind of get here. Just some summer romp. I would definitely feel like basic kind of cruise around and mellow errands kind of have within that tone. So in like mild senses, Smash Mouth did try to bring back some of those type vibes from like the 50s. So in like mild type senses, Smash Mouth did try to bring back some of those type vibes from like the 50s days, some of that type greaser type vibe within the tone behind it. Not super commonly, but obviously with songs like the Fawns and some of those type pitches and the restaurant type flair, just aspects. I mean, it's not every rock band that kind of does restaurant type music. When you think of like going to a restaurant like TGI Fridays or some of those type places, nowadays restaurant type flair is not as super common that most folks. I mean, just, you know, you would almost think that places like KFC and like Arby's are going to be more popular than actually going to a place like Olive Garden or some of those places and going in and staying there for an hour and a half as far as those pitches can happen. It's just within the tone behind it, but just kind of within the tone that To Be Continues is very 50s and just, you know, leather jacket type flair as far as that 80s, 50s flavor type grease as far as those pitches kind of happen. Just basic kind of cruise around within that pitch, just standard type flair behind it. Good type charisma about it. Solitude's a pretty nice one. It's like a solid kind of night venue noise. Kind of get here, just grab some nachos, good primer for work, just got done pitches like that, and just heading to like some socialize as far as those fairs can happen. Just kind of the primer of just like, all right, things are gonna pop off tonight, gonna have some fun as far as those pitches gonna happen. Doesn't necessarily have to be, you know, get shit faced at a bar, but just within the pitch of just having some good times, meeting up with some homies or some bellas as far as those pitches gonna happen, just within the tone. Just standard social night. Basically, you know, I would almost look after it. Could be Tuesday, Wednesday type music with work in mind the next day, but also could be within the pitch of just having like some of this. The energy on this particular album is really high on here. It's in a scrappier and more sketchy type sense, but a lot of this, there are some songs like Burn the Cycle, To Be Continued, Solitude that just have like some very scrappy, just kind of energetic type flair that should have the aspect of just having some pep on here within that. And it's just kind of the concept. It's vanilla, and it's definitely compared to, you know, obviously things like Metallica and Mushroom Head and like, you know, things like that. I'd have to say Fear Factory, some of these types of ones, and other ones within that pitch. You just would have to say there's like some viciousness that kind of goes along with it. Slipknot, I'd have to say, but it's just within the tone that, you know, for like a vanilla kind of normally kind of commercial that's just kind of more like one of the faces of like rock music in like the late 90s, like Foo Fighters. Is some good type pitches that has this relative gnarledness about it, so some good type tones. Trip is a nice one as well. This one's pretty similar to To Be Continued, just not as greaser-esque. It's like some basic kind of Pink Skies, Summer Glaze kind of get here, basic ska bop for like a pleasant cruise, and just the vanilla, and this is like a vanilla kind of venue noise to kind of get here within that pitch, and good bop to kind of have. Yeah, Trip is just basic kind of surfs up type music, just within the flair. There's definitely some beachside kind of California, Abercrombie and Fish type music, just within the flair behind it. Basic kind of mellow cruise, the same sort of cruise around type vibes. Just good type Tuesday, Wednesday type traverse, just like To Be Continued, just not as 50s-esque. I had to say about that. Good type tone for that. Then Every Word Means No, and then Every Word Means No is a nice one as well. And this is another bopish type one. It's probably one of my more favorite ones on here, along with Burn the Cycle and then Strong and some of those type of ones, I'd say. But Every Word Means No is like a usual kind of evening romp, I'd say. Definitely some like a usual kind of evening romp slog to kind of get here. It just reminds me of Weezer. This reminds of Weezer makeshift trips to kind of get within that tone. Same sort of just 5:30 p.m. type glaze within those pitches behind it. This like some typical errands to kind of get here. So it's just a pitch behind. If like Steve Harwell and Smash Mouth were to do something like Rivers Cuomo and Weezer within those pitches, just one of those type ones that just feels like, all right, tasks are done, work or class is completed. Just a standard breeze to just hair in the wind, cruise around just within the fair behind it, get some mail kind of errands done, get like some McDonald's or Burger King, some of those type pitches, just a standard tone and just relative this evening slog about it just within the fair, just figuring out what's going to happen for like the rest of the evening as far as those pitches kind of happen. Just a relative settle in, not quite as glazed as like folks like Marcy Playground and like Tonic and some of those type of folks, other ones like Third Eye Blind, but just within the pitch of like some relative wind down that just is kind of like a mellowness, maybe possibly going to like a bar having like 1-2 drinks at most, but just a relative kind of wind down for just like relative just modest day of just commerce and activity work-wise as far as this pitch kind of happen. It kind of happens to be the pitch behind it, but I like the Weezer aspects about that particular song, just like the same similarities within that pitch, good type tone for that. A little bit of Green Day in there as well, so it's good type flair. So that's just the pitch. So yeah, this album gets a 10 out of 10, just within the flair behind it. I'd say the social score, I'm going to go ahead and give the social score like a 9.75 out of 10. I would give this album a 10 out of 10 because of the quality, but it's just kind of the aspect that, you know, this being like a kind of compilation type project that's just demos and leftovers and just kind of unused unused type songs within the pitch. It doesn't really have a single, something that you could say this is the best song on here. It's just kind of within the pitch that this is some excellent stuff on here, and it does have like some good dance rippers as far as those pitch kind of happen. Just some frenetic type energy. This is Steve Harwell when he was a lot more is kind of frenetic and that usual kind of dynamite type personality that he had in the 90s and early 2000s. But it's just kind of the pitch behind it as far as saying that just without a casual type bop on here, and the fact on top of that, it just feels like this product didn't really have the official stamp. That it was just kind of not so much like a cash in, but just the concept that it just didn't feel like it was really pushed properly within the tone of saying, yeah, you should fuck with this. If you like Astro Lounge, this is the next one that you should get. This feels like it's just kind of if you know type territory when it shouldn't have been that, because this is easily one of Smash Mouth's best. I just would have to say the relative kind of not necessarily lackadaisical, but just kind of seldom kind of promotion of this product. Just kind of has a concept, but it just feels more off the wayside. So I'd say 9.75. In terms of the future, like the unfortunate thing, once again, Steve Harwell has passed as far as those pitches kind of happen. So this is the last product I have to get to that he did with the band. Now there is at least a Fushu Mang acoustic that I might review one day within those pitches, but apart from that, the only thing left is just the Mistletoe's 2023 album from the holiday seasons. That's a holiday album. Smash Mouth did 2 Christmas albums. I reviewed one not too long ago. This is the only other project to get to is just Mistletoes, and then that basically takes care of it. But this is some excellent type fare here. Like I was saying, in my opinion, top 3 is Smash Mouth's best as far as those pitch kind of happen. Very inspired, just some kind of underused and just kind of here and there casual wise type flares, like some fiery type ones, energetic Smash Mouth, some party starters, some pop off type moments, some dance crazes, some good munchies kind of have in the in between, just some night type fare that really has the enjoyment, some good makeshift as well.